I'll get right into this, I guess. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the 33rd episode of the PokéSells Official Podcast. I'm here. Oh, I'm Rocco Mitchell, obviously your host, and today I'm here with someone very special. This podcast has been a couple weeks in the works, and I'm super happy that Reid, right? Reid?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, cool. Reid was able to take some time for this, to take this out of his busy schedule. But thank you so much for coming on, Reid, also known as RJS Collectibles on Instagram. And if you could just introduce yourself for those that might know you.
Yeah, my name is Reid. I also go by RJS Collectibles. I've been buying and selling for about 4 years now. I've been in the Pokemon hobby my whole life. I really enjoy it. It's a passion project for me. And thank you for Rocco for having me on here and letting me tell my story. Any questions asked, I'd love to clear up.
Yeah, cool. So how I got introduced to you kind of was with it was with your, I forgot what video it was, but it was one of your your recent millionaire challenge or $1 million in sales challenge, which I've been doing a very similar thing. Not obviously $1 million in sales, but I've been doing trying to become, I call it just a Pokemon millionaire because it's just like a thing that's always popped in my head. And pretty much I saw your content and I'm like, whoa, this is actually super cool. Like this is someone that is actually doing is where I'm trying to be at, or is obviously a lot farther in the journey. Obviously you completed the challenge, so congratulations for that, for hitting that goal. But obviously you're someone that has been there, or is getting there a lot closer to where that is than I am. So I was like, oh, this is sick. And I kind of reached out. I was like, I forgot what I said, but I said some random thing. I was like, yo, what's up? My name's Rocco. I'm like a 16-year-old. I was 16 at the time. I'm 17 now. And I was like, yeah, let's see what I say. Yeah, so very similar. It was like, yeah, you're kind of in a position I want to be at, and I kind of just invited you on the podcast, and we talked about stuff, and I was just, you seem like someone that obviously is very you take it seriously, obviously, and someone that obviously this is your line of work, and I thought that was really cool. So I don't know where I'm going to go with this, but let's just, I guess, get right into it. So what got you started into Pokemon? You said you've been a collector your whole life. What has been
kind of your... When I was a kid, I would collect, do the whole trading card game, trades at school up until 4th or 5th grade. And then I kind of got out of it for a while, going into high school. Then my junior year is kind of when Pokemon started again. And I was playing soccer at a pretty high level, and I got invited to go overseas. But it was really expensive. I didn't have the funds. So I had to come up with I think it was around $6,700 to $8,000, somewhere in that range. So I started, on the weekends that I didn't have soccer, or the mornings before my games, I'd go to garage sales and I would start flipping what was it, $40 items. I only started with $40 to $200, which is something that people don't understand. They think I was just funded this whole fortune, but I had a little bit of birthday money saved it throughout the year. So I would start at these garage sales. Literally shoes, I would sell Bionicle Legos. And my biggest lesson was a Ninja smoothie where I lost money because I don't understand that shipping costs were a big thing, stuff like that. And then I eventually found my old collection. I sold that one on eBay for $350, my old Pokemon collection from when I was a kid. And I kind of niched down into Pokemon, one, because I loved it, and two, it just was easier to niche down. So I would go to Craigslist and I would always filter garage sales. That's where I'd find them. Then I'd put Pokemon into the garage sale filter. That's how I'd start finding Pokemon collections over and over. And I would also do eBay. I would sell, 50-cent to $3 cards over and over and over on eBay. And eventually, I would get into some bigger slabs, but nothing ever more than $100, $200 when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And eventually that snowballed, and I got enough. I got right around $8,000 to be able to go to Spain, play soccer, but I had to come back to finish my senior year of high school. So that kind of drained my account. So right when I got back, that's when I had to reset everything. But I had all the smaller, time it took to learn how to do the small flips into my head. And that's when I kind of recycle everything back into my head. And the big turning point was when I had to go back to Spain after I graduated early. I tore my ACL on the first day. I was kind of, I was very bummed out because I was my professional dream to go play soccer. And then I had this, ideology of Pokemon and the whole buy, sell, trade game in my head. So when I came back, that's when I started, full blown RJS Collectibles, turn it into an LLC. that's where I'm at today. And then there's just so many levels of where I've gone. I've been scammed many times. I started like from zero, just having to redo everything. So there's just so much that got into it, so much small things into this hobby that, you know, really recycle you upwards and that you have to learn and always grow with.
Yeah, no, I think that's cool. Well, obviously your story is awesome. That's insane. And now that makes sense because I always see like you're always wearing like soccer jerseys and a whole bunch of stuff, which is something also like my brother is really really big into soccer. Like he the whole nine. He probably I wanted. Well, I don't say I wanted it, but he probably could go like semi-pro if he wanted to, but like he doesn't want to. But he very similar story with me at least is so my kind of story for Pokemon is obviously it was last summer, so a year ago. I wanted to get into like online business stuff because I wanted to make money. I wanted to buy stuff, um, and kind of like how your goal was to go get like the 7 grand or the eight whatever the amount was so that you could go to Spain to play. Um, my goal was kind of like my dream is like I love Pokemon. Like I've been doing it since I was 8, so I've been doing it for a whole bunch of years, like buying, not like collecting. And then I got out of it during COVID. So for me, Pokemon was like, okay, this is something that is very liquid right now. It was kind of last year. So last year, like August, I think, is when I started. Like actually, like I had an eBay. I was selling stuff on eBay. That eventually I exited eBay because the fees were just too high, and I started vending, and then I fell in love with vending, and I've been doing that ever since. But it was kind of during like the last year had kind of like a dip before Surging Sparks came out, I believe. That's like that area, like that dip right before is when I got into it. And I was like, okay, like I see the market's trending now down. Okay, this is like sounds like a decent time to like start buying inventory, start doing stuff. And for me, that's when I got into it. And ever since then, it's just been a ride. I started vending in November, and then um, now what we're doing in Nashville because Nashville has a lot of sports card show, but not like big Pokemon specific show. So now we run our own conventions for just Pokemon people and stuff like that called Trails and Glory. It's down here. It's really cool. But so yeah, kind of similar thing doing that. And now where I also do a lot of stuff is on TCG Player because I kind of took that ecom because I come from before doing Pokemon, I did like email marketing, I did like agency, like ecom type stuff beforehand, like just basic internet money things. And I went and did TCG Player for me was kind of like that outlet where I could put those skills into it and then teach other people how to do it. So that's really cool. And for me also when I started eBay was my like childhood binder, which was like about let's see, I think it was about like $500, and then everything else has just been reinvesting from there. But that's really that's like super cool that you're able to do that. And another thing for me that I really enjoyed was I don't know like what that turning point was for you, but for me, like I'm obviously my senior year of high school. I'm about to start my senior year. I'm very much like obviously everyone's asking, oh, what college, all this type of stuff. It's something that I think you said you either dropped out or you didn't go. You can correct me, whatever.
I dropped for about a year and a half.
Yeah. So for me, I was like, okay, wow, this is like something that obviously you're someone that's doing a lot. Um, and I assume it was because Pokemon was doing well. And that's why you left soon. I don't know. And we could talk about that later. But for me, like I'm not necessarily wanting to go to college because I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm like an entrepreneur at heart, and I see that like I have a mentor also. His name's Tony. He's great. He kind of told me he's running multiple international businesses and stuff like that, and he told me that was like you don't necessarily need to go to college to be like know about business stuff. So for me, is like okay, who's like someone that I can follow or people that I can like follow to do like take inspiration from and stuff like that. So that's also another reason why I was kind of brought into your like I started following you like all that type of stuff. But what was like if you don't mind sharing, what was kind of like that process for you from like exiting college and like kind of taking that and being like what I like to call like a Poképenuer, so Pokemon entrepreneur, like mixing the two, kind of like a little thing that I termed. What was kind of your journey with that?
Okay, yeah. So my parents are very what's the word? the very strict route where they wanted me to go college and all this stuff. And I actually, so a year and a half after college, I was like, all right, in my Pokemon journey, I maybe had about 20K on cards at this point, and I didn't really like how college was going. I was in a business management degree, which, I mean, it just seemed kind of pointless for me. And I was just like, I want to push the pedal, and can I do my own thing? Long story short, I didn't sign up for classes the last semester. I got kicked out of my house. So like I had my parents my mom wasn't very fond of that. So I had to like go on my whole own thing with that. And I pushed the pedal like every single day. I would drive like, across Florida to make like a $200 flip, like stuff like that over and over. And that's I didn't have like a plan B. Obviously there could be many plan B's, just going back, re-enrolling, stuff like that, but I didn't want one. So I would literally just push myself out from like the thing with entrepreneurship people don't understand is it's not, people are like, you have freedom, you don't need to work all these hours like a 9 to 5, but you're working more than a 9 to 5. Like the second you wake up, I'm on my phone, I'm checking DMs. The second I go to bed, I am fulfilling orders, I'm shipping, I'm replying to messages. So it's like 16 hours out of my day. Even at the gym, like my one like free time out of the day, maybe I hang out with my girlfriend, I'm still on my phone, DMing people, trying to do deals. It's nonstop. And with video creation, because I edit film, I do it all myself on my phone. It's all me. It's 24/7. So with entrepreneurship, right? Pokemon's awesome because it teaches you buy, sell, trade, margins, shipping, the whole, chain for that is very simple in Pokemon. If you learn how to scale it, there's a lot of different levels you can get to. But at that point, once you learn the buy, sell, trade, and kind of make it a business, obviously we have our own personal brands. That is really the new wave of entrepreneurship, is having your personal brand, have that grow. That's kind of the direction I've oriented to. But I'd say there just wasn't a plan B for me. And with what I was saying, with there's buy, sell, trade, I can go to any type of business. So even if I failed this, which, I had to restart, from zero a few times, that even if I failed Pokemon, I wanted to do another business. And there's just so much that I still want to do now and use the funds that I've created to explore other businesses without taking loans. Obviously, loans that are debt can be used to your advantage, but I just wanted to definitely raise Pokemon capital for these reasons and leverage that to other businesses. But I love what I'm doing right now, so I don't see why I can't do it simultaneously and just grow from there. But that was definitely the reason I dropped out. Was I didn't like school. I didn't like sitting there when I knew I could do my own thing and try to push myself to new limits. But I was like in a dark spot. Like there's no plan B. I'm kicked out. I'm in a new place. So the place I was staying at, I could send you a video. So right here we have the table where I'm trading, where I'm doing my cards, and my bed, all my clothes under the bed. So hopefully I can get out of here in a very nice apartment. I had a twin size bed next to my desk where I would do all my shipping station, take all my pictures. I didn't have enough room to fit a chair. So I would sit on my bed, on my laptop, like I am right now, without a chair because there just wasn't room. So it was twin size bed, desk. That's all I would do all day, do deals, not a very nice area I was living at the time. But literally no plan B. But obviously it's the position I'm at now. And that's why in January, I started that challenge that you saw, the 0 to 1 million. And I hit that in June. So before half the year ended. But the reason people are like, oh, you should have started with 2 million. In 2024, starting after September, I was not doing any numbers. I would do maybe 10K a month in the beginning of the year. Then it would start to trickle down to 30. And then at the end of the year, I maybe would hit 60 to 70,000 through the whole year. I only did 300,000. So when I set that big goal, I want to sell $1 million worth of Pokemon cards in January. That was huge. I didn't think I could do it because that was a really big goal. But looking back, obviously that pushes yourself to, be open-minded and, explore new goals, especially without having that extra plan behind you. So you got to think 10x more than you think you can do. And that's how you get there. If you just set an average goal, you're going to hit that goal. And then you're going to feel comfortable. Okay, today I can maybe work 2 hours and then I'll hit my standard and go there. But if you just dial in and, do whatever you want, the sky's the limit. Yeah, no.
And I that's crazy story. And like the whole idea, like for me, um, for it was, what was it, 2023, in December of 2023 was kind of like when I like to say like kind of, it's like when I woke up, I was like kind of like, just like a normal kid doing stuff. And then I remember I was like on YouTube Shorts, and because I didn't have Instagram or anything, I was on YouTube Shorts and I saw like this like one car edit, and like the cars that talk about, it's like whatever, it's like Porsche or McLaren or whatever. And I saw one of them and I was like, dang, I really want to do that. Like I want to own one of those. Or I want to be at that level. And for me, that was kind of like the beginning of me. Like I was like I got into shape because I used to be like really big. I lost a lot of weight. I started like looking at, okay, here, how can I like make money? How can I do all this stuff? And like very similar to what you're saying, like no plan B. And that's that's crazy that you got kicked out. And like for me, that's my one reason why I'm so like kind of locked in it right now, is because same thing. My parents are like kind of more traditional in the sense where they want me to like go to college, do all that stuff. And for me, it's like okay. And that was another reason why I was asking for like spreadsheets and all that type of stuff, was because I was like, okay, how can I prove to them that I'm like I can actually make this work like before I'm out of high school? So like um, that's like that's kind of like my main focus right now, like why I'm like always really dialed in and all that type of stuff. But what you were saying about your room is, I mean, that's kind of like the same setup that's like my room right now, where it's my bed. I have a nightstand where I have like a couple books that I'm reading, and then I just have shelves where all my inventory is, and then I have my desk. And my entire desk right now is covered by, I have a normal like a paper printer. I have a label printer. I have a like a, like my laptop, and that's like it. Like Pokemon just covers like everything else in my room, and then I have my closet. And that's literally like just that's my whole setup right now, and I'm very much like I'm kind of where you were there. And same thing, like I have two jobs on top of doing this Pokemon stuff. I have one that I work at a farm in the morning, and then I'm a cashier at Publix, and both of those kind of jobs kind of like provide like normal cash flow like stuff, like just for me to live off of, buy clothes or whatever. But when I'm not working at Publix, or oh yeah, Publix. So I work at Publix. You know what Publix is.
Yep, Publix in Florida.
Yeah. When I'm not working at the farm or when I'm not in the gym, I'm just like on my laptop 24/7 on my phone. Like as literally as we're talking right now, I can pull it up. Like I have a Facebook group going on right now, and it's all the Tennessee, like all the big Tennessee vendors, like, and it's just constantly going and
Yep.
going and going and going and going. People are like posting deals on there all the time. So like, it's just crazy it's just 24/7.
That's on
And I
Facebook.
know, yeah, Facebook. Yeah. So Facebook is honestly, a little sidetrack. I didn't realize, because obviously I'm Gen Z, I think, right? I think I'm Gen Z, yeah. But like a lot of my friends don't use Facebook, or they're like, oh, Facebook's cringe, Facebook, all this type of stuff. But then like I got Facebook, and Facebook is where you print, bro. Like that's where like all the Pokemon stuff is. Like once I started like realizing that, I was like, dang, Facebook is actually goated. But yeah, that's one of the Facebook groups I'm going. I always have people like constantly DMing me like, yo, are you wanting to buy this? Oh, are you wanting to do this? Like, can we work something out here? Or what shows are you doing this week? All that type of stuff. But I get it. Like, I'm sure you could see, I'm like, my eyes are crooked, but, I was up, sleep up till like 1 to 2 every day, fulfilling orders, all that type of stuff that's just how it is. And then now what I'm starting to do is I'm like starting to vlog. So I bought this camera for vendor POPs and vlogging, to kind of like put like just more content out there, and more like I was saying before, is like kind of my mission is to bring like the internet money side of people, like Alex Emojis or Iman Gajis. I don't know if you know these names.
I know.
But like, yeah. So like kind of bringing that side, what you're saying also with personal brand, bringing that into Pokemon, because I noticed that there's not a lot of that in the Pokemon space. So kind of bringing that here, and just, documenting my journey is what I'm doing. But I relate really heavy to what you're saying about like all that type of stuff. But I get it, and I know that I'm sure that's great. I'm like super happy that you're where you're at now. And a previous guest that I had on, also very similar story. You do Collecticons, so you know Arvin.
Yes. Well, I've met him a few times. He's go to pools, right?
Yeah. So I've had him on the podcast, and very similar story. He was like, I think he told me he was like $3,000 in debt, and he was like, I have to get out of this. So he like just like he went $3,000 in debt to rip Pokemon packs, and then he went and like sold all the stuff he ripped, and now he's like where he's at, which is like
Yeah,
crazy.
he's crushing it. I see his stuff.
Yeah, but very similar stuff, and I think that like right now, obviously, like that point where like it just sucks. Like you have to put in so many hours, so much time, but in the future, it's worth it. Um,
Yeah.
and then, final thing before we can go on, or if you have something to say, um, was what you were saying about what was it? You were talking about personal brand. Shoot, I forgot what you were going to say. It's okay. Never mind. We can go back to it. It'll come back to me later. But what you were saying about that, I thought was really cool. But so with this, obviously, you're someone that has been doing this for a while, and obviously you crushed your goal. What does your day look like being 21, correct?
Yeah, I'm 21.
A 21-year-old making printing money with Pokemon.
Okay, yeah. So I make day in the life videos sometimes, which shows it, and that's literally what I do in the day in the life is literally what I do every single day. I've been waking up a little later since I just moved, so and with the Collecticons, I get in late sometimes. But if I'm like, the week's all set, I'm not traveling, I'll wake up at 5 or 6, typically more towards 6. I'll take my dog out, I'll feed him. We'll take some pre-workout at like a spoon of honey. I'll either go on a run or go to the gym because I like to do a hybrid mix of things now. I used to play soccer, but I've been in bodybuilding for about 2 years since I got injured. But I'm finally playing after my rehab. I'll go to the gym, run, and then the rest of the day, I'm literally just working until I go to bed. So I like to just take caffeine and hit the gym or run. The rest of the day is just work. So typically what I'll do is a lot of it's just on my phone. So it's just DMs, getting back to people. So I'll say typically from 9 to 4, I'm just making deals. And then around 5 to 6 is when I try to edit on CapCut for a video I'm trying to make. I've been a little, inconsistent with that lately, but I used to just do it every single day. But it's mostly with the traveling. It's been a little hard and I just moved. But normally 5 to 6, 5 to 7, I'll make a CapCut video and post it on Instagram. And then after I do the video, I'll eat dinner and then I do all my shipping because I like to also do my shipping on the way to the gym. So I like to just go out one time during the day, either to the, once I go to the gym, I'll do all my other errands with that, with groceries or the post office. The rest of the day, locked in, editing, doing deals, and then like just taking care of my dog. That's really all I do.
That's so tough, bro. That's awesome. That's great. That's literally very similar to what I do. And funny thing about shipping, because I do everything on TCG Player, and now I get like on average we get like probably like 20 orders a day, and I usually save all my shipping. I don't know what it is, but like my brain just like locks in like at night when I'm like relating to shipping and stuff. I don't know why it just does. But my mailbox is broken because of how many orders like I'm constantly shipping. Like the little, the little flag. Yeah, so like
Yes.
literally the mailman just like and like you can't set it up now. So I'm trying to buy a car. That's like my next goal. I've been able to scale from 200 or like $500 into where I'm at now. And which is like June we hit our first 10K month in June. So
Awesome.
I'm trying to like yeah, thank you. I'm trying to scale into like buying a car and stuff like that. So that's like the next goal. But once I do that, I'll be doing like probably like daily or by date, like not grocery, but like USPS hauls. When I was doing eBay too, it was funny. The people at the post office like knew my name just because of how much like stuff I was shipping out. I was there like every other day or something during eBay. They're like, "Oh, what's up, Rocco?" And like they would always know like the shipping methods that they use. But that's sick.
Crushing it. I'll say get a Japanese car so your profits don't go down the gutter.
Yeah, I'm trying to get like an older. So the goal is to get like a beater car for about a year, just to see how it works. Like either like an older truck or a like older sedan. So like something chill. I know some mechanics, so they hook me up with good stuff. And then later, probably after graduation, buy something a little nicer.
I'd say
Just to,
get a SUV or a truck if you're gonna do the shows.
yeah, that's kind of that was my thought process behind it. And also I'm like I just like trucks. I've always liked trucks. Trucks are just they're just tough. But that's kind of the goal for that. And then investing it back into inventory or whatever's left over into inventory, which we'll be doing our first Collecticon in September. So that's Atlanta, which is like crazy. I've been vending. I haven't even vending for a year at this point.
You need a
Which
table.
if you're doing, huh?
I could probably get you a table.
We got a table.
Okay.
Yeah. So my group has half an island.
Okay,
Uh,
sweet.
so I mean, but if you have another, we have about half an island, but
Yeah,
it's
you're
super.
set then. But you're ahead of the game. I only started vending like beginning of last year when I officially set up my LLC. Because I would. So what you're
Mhm,
saying with Facebook earlier, I would do strictly Facebook. So I would post on Facebook groups almost every single day for like from my from like the senior year of high school to the freshman year of college. I'd post almost every single day in every single group. So I'm in like 20 Facebook groups. I don't do it as much because I build up my personal brand, so it's easier just to post a
mhm.
story or wholesale a bunch of cards to one or two
Yeah.
people. But Facebook groups were the wave. Every single day, you put a little timestamp on your pictures, do a sale.
Mhm.
It was definitely how to do it. What was I
Yeah.
saying before
What? I don't remember.
that? Okay.
Yeah, something about getting a Japanese car and then Facebook and then claim sales and how personal brand like builds is building more. Oh, how you started vending your vending journey.
Yes, I only started vending last year, so you're way ahead of the game. And then my first Collecticon, I did really well, and I kind of just, I started the whole point of just continuing vending and scaling from there. I did my first local show before I did any Collecticon, so you're definitely doing it
Mhm.
right. There's no point in jumping into the bigger shows with more expenses until you have, a decent amount of inventory, or else you're just going to be breaking even at most.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal for my thought process doing this. I started doing local shows in November. Was my first one. Well, here I can show you this. I have it saved. I show it almost on every podcast now. But this was my setup for my first show ever, which was in November of last year. My boy Abe, so he's like my business partner. Well, not my business partner. Well, yeah, he's my business partner. We co-own Grails and Glory, which is our show together. And um, he helps me. He's been helping me. He's been in the game for like longer than I've been alive. Um, but he's been helping me and all that stuff. And long story short, he calls me up the Wednesday before the show on Saturday, and he's like, "Yo, Rocco, you want to do a show? I have an extra spot, and on Saturday, like be there at 8 a.m." I was like, "What? Like, oh my goodness, I have to talk to my parents about this, all this stuff." I was freaking out, and I didn't even know what to do. I didn't even have a case. Let me show
Yeah, that
you.
was my dilemma.
Yeah, I had. That was it. It was like,
Gotta
it
get
was,
robbed.
yeah, exactly. It was so bad. But that was my first show. And then quickly I was like very soon I was like, okay, now I have to buy a case. And something we do is we bought the little like poster thing, or not poster, they're like what you see in a classroom, like what your teacher like will put like
Yeah,
bulletin boards and stuff like that. So we
yeah.
bought a lot of
The
those. Mhm. And then I eventually sold those and bought like some actual like better cases, not like Zion or anything, but like some better like handheld cases. And now we've been doing that, but it's been really fun. I love vending over anything else. Like it's um, it's the best ROI I think, at least in selling, unless it's like a Facebook or like an Instagram claim sale where you're not taking any fees, but literally you're just paying for your show expense and then everything else is pretty much net profit, besides obviously like what you're buying and selling at.
Yeah, and that's the great thing with
But
shows. You can buy and sell at the same time instead of just dealing with one guy buying, one guy selling. You can just kind of do a mix the whole weekend. And then
yeah,
I'll ask a question for you. What's like, where do you see yourself scaling to? What do you want to do? And with Pokemon, do you see it as a longevity thing? Are you going to continue doing this? Or are you going to venture into other businesses with the profit you make?
so very similar to what you're saying, what you've been saying. I Pokemon for me is like this is my way out. This is like for me the way to I'm gonna make my first million like with Pokemon. Like that's my goal. And then I got really lucky with meeting Abe and my friend Tyler as well. And we all kind of came together and did shows, which shows at least like they make a lot of good money. Like if you're running a show, like it's very minimal expenses and you're like making really good money. We try to with Grails and Glory, we try to price our tables like fairly well. We price them $10 over like what the local sports card shows do, but we also provide vendor breakfast for our vendors and like we like make it we're all vendors at heart, so we're like okay, you know, most vendors are buying McDonald's before they're coming to the show or whatever food for breakfast. Let's just take that out of the picture. Come to our show, we'll have breakfast for you. But shows are really have been like a really big blessing for me and helped me scale like really fast. And suffice to say, growing Grails and Glory and then growing PokéSells, which is my personal brand, kind of to 1 million. And after that, continuing to do Pokemon. Have you been to Frankensons? Or do you know what Frankensons
No,
is?
that's in California, right?
Yeah.
I've heard of it. I always see the vendor POVs, but I've never been there.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we're trying to establish here in Nashville because Nashville's like really centrally located. So like we're like 6 hours away from Chicago. We're like 10 hours away from Dallas or 14 hours away from Dallas, I think. Like we're like really close to a lot of different like other places where a lot of big shows are for like Collecticon and stuff like that, 4 hours away from Atlanta. And we're trying to build that type here. And I don't know. I'm going on a tangent. I do this a lot, so my bad. I'm also, yeah. So suffice to say, for PokéSells, I'm trying to scale it to. I would love to do, like, continue doing 10K a month until the end of graduate, like senior year. By senior year, maybe have like a 20 or 30K a month, just depending on what the schedule entails. But scaling that to hopefully get to obviously like 100K a month, all that type of stuff, probably within a year after high school. And then with Grails and Glory, we're continuing to scale that to hopefully having like multiple different shows a month. Because how we set Grails and Glory up is like our main one here is in Nashville, but we franchise our show. So let's say you wanted to do your own Grails and Glory show in Orlando. You would be like, hey, Rocco, I want to do a Grails and Glory show in Orlando. I have this list of vendors. I'm obviously you're well connected in the space. I know how to bring people. I have a venue, etc. Then I'll be like, okay, cool. I'll partner in with you, and we'll make Grails and Glory Orlando. And then that show will be its own separate location, but under the Grails and Glory umbrella, if that kind of makes sense.
Okay,
so
sweet.
Like
connect people to the show and have it run under your name.
Yes, exactly. So kind of like a fast food chain, I guess, or any restaurant or any franchise, having it like our flagship here is in Nashville, but then there'll be Grails and Glory, Indiana, or Indiana with that. Grails and Glory. Oh, I did the same thing. Grails and Glory, Orlando, Grails and Glory, Houston, Grails and Glory, Chicago, whatever it might be. Just whatever. And then I think we're thinking like 6 times a year. So 4 times a year. So every 3 months, we have like a big one where we invite all our vendors from all our locations into like just a mega convention here in Nashville.
That's sweet.
Yeah. So that's kind of the plan for that, if that answers your question.
Yeah. Because you're running your personal page and then also running a pretty scalable business if you do it right. So that's awesome.
Yeah. I also want to buy a Tesla. So that's also.
A Tesla?
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet.
Yeah. So that's kind of like one thing I want to do. And then I'm currently right now doing a trade up challenge into a Rolex. So hopefully finish that is kind of a goal. So I started with a pair of Jordan 4s. Speaking of like used to flip shoes and stuff like that, or flip. I'm trading that up into a Rolex.
Oh, sweet. What Rolex?
Submariner.
Okay. I want a Wimbledon 41 millimeter fluted on Jubilee. That's the one I want. I don't have one. I'm trying to stay below my means. I just moved into this house, which was my big goal because, like I was telling you, the place I was at, it's pretty small. So Rolex is next on the list, but not yet.
Yeah. There you go. So you just moved. Were you bought your house or
I'm renting it with a buddy of mine. So it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. So basically, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. So we each get our own bedroom and office. I mean, both do this, so it's pretty cool. I do want to buy a house soon, but the market is a little weird in Florida with how crazy hurricanes are and insurance. I think this year would be like the perfect time to start venturing off into that side of investments with profits as well. But right now I'm just renting.
Cool. I'm trying to get some duplexes in within like a couple of years, or a duplex to rent out and do for cash flow and mortgages and all that type of stuff. So
there too. So got to find the deals, but they're definitely long term sustainable.
Yeah.
If you do it right.
I don't know how. Obviously, you do Collecticon, and your network is at a grander scale. But for me here personally too, it's something that I've been able to, I haven't made, like, obviously we hit like 10K last month, and then this month I haven't finished my spreadsheet, but if we should be hitting 10K because our TCG player like skyrocketed, like it scaled like crazy in this past month. But the most valuable thing I've been able to do in I think 8 months that I've been like really dialed in has been my network. So like for example, I met my mentor Tony through Pokemon. He runs 3 international companies, like normal companies, not like Pokemon. And then I know a lot of people that are in Pokemon here, especially are in real estate. So like just a whole bunch of different people that I've been able to meet through Pokemon that they're like, oh, hey, Rocco, let me know if you need help with a car, or let me know if you need a job for something. Like I'm always like, it's just that weird. It's weird how so many different types of people are brought into Pokemon that like are not like, they're just normal people and like they have normal jobs and all that type of stuff. That kind of sounds weird, but you know what I mean? Like just the amount of different types of people that are in Pokemon that can compound into something else. And I don't know how kind of that feels like that for you, if you've been able to do something similar.
Yes. So I've talked to so many people that are either in, construction business, real estate. Some people have their own, dental industries, stuff like that. But, the great thing about Pokemon that kind of separates it from sports is, it's male and female, it's kids and adults where, sports kind of can be oriented to just like the older male geographic because it's a lot of money too. But there's just so many different type of people in Pokemon that you can meet. And it's just really been cool. Like, one of my buddies, Eric Powell, he owns I believe a construction company, and just everyone does their own thing, and they kind of branch off ideas with them for investments as well. And I've met so many people who watch my videos and say, hey, I want to let's hop on this business together. We could start some investments here. I can fund you, stuff like that. So it's definitely like what you're saying. It's just more people, the better it is. But the thing with the net worth is your network is a very popular saying, but you obviously have to work to be there. You can't just, meet these people and say, my net worth is so high because I know these people. You have to provide value back to them. And that's where, you can combine assets and really, become valuable to like a mutual benefit.
Yeah, no, exactly. Also, sorry, I drank a lot of liquids on the podcast, and I'm going to hit the gym afterwards, so I'm trying to fuel up. But that's so like that's true, and how you have to like put in the work for it, and it's like it's any relationship. It can't just be one-sided, or at least it shouldn't be one-sided. And it's just something that, like you said, like it's just crazy. Like I know the sports card people. I did the national. It's like the biggest show that we do here. It's a ripoff of the other national.
It's going on.
Yeah, so the real national is going in Chicago right now, and I have some buddies that are going there. But then Nashville, the guy that runs the main sports card shows here, his name's Jeff. He runs a big convention 3 times a year called also the National, but it's SH, like Nashville instead of a T. And suffice to say, I met some sports card people there, and they can be snobby sometimes. Like they had this guy had, what was it? A first edition, not first edition, a PSA 1 of the original Moon Kitty. So the old Umbreon where he's like looking at the moon, not the new one, but the old one. And literally, so let's just say like this is the slab, and it's like right here. like I was like, oh wow, it's super cool. And then I went like this to like, let's just say my friend was right behind me. I showed it to my friend. I was like, look how cool this is. And I put it down. And he's like, hey, next time you take, like I asked him, I was like, yo, can I take this and like show it to my friend really quick? He was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I do that, and then I put it down, and he like looked at me. He's like, he yelled at me. He's like, yo, next time you do that, like, or next time you ask some, like, try to take something from someone's table, ask. I'm like, bro, I literally asked you this like 5 seconds before. I was like, what the heck, bro? But sometimes sports card people can just be snobby. But also sometimes they don't know what they're doing, so you can milk them really hard, which kind of like balances it. But
there's those type of vendors in every type of situation, so you just got to be nice, and hopefully they'll give you a deal though.
Yeah, no, I think it's true. What So obviously you do Collecticon, and you said you started doing that a couple like last year. What was like? You said you're part of a group, right? When I think I texted you about it. You said you're part of a group.
No.
Or no? So you do it by yourself?
This is 100% me. I've never had an investor. I've never borrowed money. It's just been me this whole time.
So you talked about your day to day. You talked about doing Collecticon. What about Collecticon? Like, you started doing local shows, I assumed. What's like the difference between Collecticon and a local show? Obviously, there's big differences. That would be my first question, and then two, like how has Collecticon affected your growth and scalability as a Pokemon brand?
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so I started doing smaller shows, which kind of just gave me like the basic, sales skills, how to buy, sell, and kind of get myself in that door. But it got to be a kind of limiting at a certain point where I wanted my numbers to be higher, but they were kind of stagnant. Just doing the shows, obviously, I would do it online at the same time, which would boost myself and get more deals. But then once I started doing Collecticon, that's when a lot of people, a lot more deals come your way. But the biggest thing for Collecticon is the vendors there, and the people there are really cool. And that's, that's where you start making your network really high. You start meeting new people. And when I first started going there, maybe I knew like two people I kind of would just, go with, whatever. Now I know like half the people in the room, spark conversations with everybody, good word of mouth. You do good business. People will bring people to your table, stuff like that. The biggest thing of Collecticon isn't really like the selling, because you can sell online, you can buy online, but the people you meet there and the community you build with Collecticon, also good for content as well with meeting all these people. It's just the network, really. If I didn't go to any of these Collecticons, I'd maybe know like half, a few people in the room just from social media, but that'd be it.
Cool. No, that's awesome. And I'm looking forward to it. We're in section 81, so we're like right by the stage, which I heard can be like really loud, obviously, because Jason Page or whoever is there usually plays his music super loud. But that's where we are, which is going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it though, as it's my first one, and I never thought my goal for the end of the year. I have a video on this YouTube channel. But the goal I had like I set goals, and one of them was like, I want to do a Collecticon. I don't know which Collecticon I'm going to do, because I know like obviously they get booked out within seconds, which is like crazy. We tried to get on the Atlanta drop, and it got sold out. But the fact that I was able to do it is really cool. So we're trying to do Chicago as well, but obviously I think tables drop the 1st of August, I think. But I'm looking forward to that one. But that's really cool. I'm looking forward to it. I know
Chicago, Jersey, and Orlando are probably the top 3 biggest ones I've experienced so far. I haven't gone to all of them, but those 3 have been crazy.
Mm-hmm. And also, there's like a traveling aspect of it, like obviously. So like, I also, before I started selling Pokemon, I also played a lot of Pokemon like competitively. And a big thing with them is like the regionals. So very similar with Collecticon, I guess, but it's like a tournament ran by the Pokemon company. And what a lot of people talked about it was like the traveling. So let's say you're going to Worlds this year is in Anaheim, California, for example. Like you're going to Anaheim to play Pokemon, but also if you've never been to Anaheim before, you can you're exploring the city as well, which I think is like really cool. And I know I haven't been to a lot of these places where Collecticon is, So my game plan after high school is kind of like to be like a traveling collecticon vendor, obviously like doing deals and promoting my brand and also promoting Grails and Glory, and all that type of stuff. But I look forward to it because obviously, there's Jersey Collecticon, but I've never been to New Jersey. So I get to go to there, have a show there, make money, but then also be able to explore a city or like Las Vegas. I know some friends of mine, or was there one in Las Vegas?
There hasn't been one in Las Vegas. There's one in
Okay,
Los
well,
Angeles.
oh, okay, cool. Never mind. Then I'm tweaking. There was another show that my friends went to, in Las Vegas, and they went and they did the show, and then they went to the casino until like 2 in the morning the night afterwards, which is like just stuff like that seems like fun. Obviously, gambling is not fun. Don't gamble, even though we all gamble, with Pokemon. But just putting that disclaimer out there. But just the experience that is also going to a city to do stuff, I think is really cool, and I'm looking forward to it.
100%. Like when we just did New Jersey Collecticon, but our B&B was a little north of the convention. So we were in New York. So we went to Times Square and all that, which is pretty sick. Mm-hmm. So it turned into like a last second little day trip. But with the shows, it's kind of draining sometimes. So wake up at 6 or 7 a.m. each day, and then for Saturday, Sunday. But if you stay that whole extra day, I know some people they'll stay like a whole week, or they bring their wives or whatever. They'll do a vacation and each city they go to. Because when you're doing the show, bro, you're toast.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, the national here, which is a 3-day, it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's crazy. At the end, I'm beat. So I'm sure Collecticon is obviously like really much more bigger than that. I'm sure it's going to be crazy. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like waking up at 4, going to the gym, and getting ready for the show. It's going to be fun. Which it will be, but I'm sure it is. So with you, do you have like a goal that you're trying to go to every show? Like, let's say you're doing, let's say there's a Collecticon. You just did Richmond, right?
Yep, Richmond.
Okay. So before you went to Richmond, did you have like a goal like, oh, I'm trying to make 20K to come here or whatever? Like what's kind of like your process before going to a show, I guess, or like goal setting? If you have one.
So I actually have a notebook and I'll write my goal before each show, even the beginning of the year, what I want to do, revenue. I've been doing this for like years. I have like 3 notebooks stacked to like here, all my numbers, every single sale I've ever done in all these notebooks. So for like Richmond, I didn't think it would be as good as it did. So I was like, okay, maybe if I do 10K each day, I'd be pretty happy. But I did. I think I did around 40,000 in sales, which was pretty good. And then I was buying a lot too. So restocking for the next shows. So typically I like to do, I'll split it. One day I want to do 15. Orlando, I did, I think just shy of $80,000. And my goal probably was only 30,000. So my goal probably was only like 30,000 for that show. But my main goal is really just to be buying out these shows and restocking because I have the means to move it on the internet now. Different wholesalers, stuff like that. And as much as I can buy, I know I can sell. So that's pretty much where I'm at. But I definitely go into the show wanting to, hit a certain number of sales. Typically, eventually I want to, keep moving it up to, 50,000 minimum each show. And then I know some guys are probably a few $100,000 each show, but you have to stock a lot of inventory. So we'll see where it goes from there.
That's cool. And that you kind of answered my second question that I was going to ask you was kind of like, that's awesome that you have a notebook. And this is a side note, and then I'll get back to the main thing. Do you recommend, so how I like to do it right now is I'll have for raw inventory, I have a TCG player listing of all my raw inventory that is at the beginning of the show. And then if it's a multi-day show, I copy that for every day. And then afterwards, so like the Monday after, the Tuesday after the show, I'll go through that inventory list and like delete all sales or all trades or whatever, and then I'll add that up, and I'll be like, okay, this is like what we sold in singles, and then for slabs, like I'll do like a normal spreadsheet. So like RC's V-Star, I think market's like 220. I bought it for 180 and sold it for 210 or whatever, and I'll put that in the spreadsheet. I have friends that do have a notebook. So do you think that it's more beneficial to do something like that with TCG Player and like spreadsheets where it's kind of more streamlined and more like kind of on the internet and you process it after, or kind of doing like a little notebook throughout the show?
Well, the issue with a lot of those shows is that the internet's cooked. So if you bring in like
Mhm.
your computer, it might not even load. So I, I feel like it's almost easier just to have your notebook out and do the sales. But for raw cards, I would suggest TCG Player. It's pretty easy just to add the card, unless there's totally no internet. Just write it down what you pay and sell for.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. That's a big question that I've been having. And yeah, most of the time the internet is cooked. I noticed that, and it's like
I
it
just like the
pisses me
pen and
off a
paper
lot.
stuff. So
Yeah, no, that's great. And you answered my second question, going back to what I was saying, which is like during shows, are you picking up a lot more? Are you selling a lot more? Because for me, obviously, I do TCG Player, so I move inventory relatively fast. So a lot of the goals that I have for a show is like spend $300 on TCG Player and pick up as much stuff so that I can move it. Um, and from what it sounds like is like obviously you're selling, you're there to sell, but you have outlets to offload stuff after the show. So if you don't hit your goal, or um, if you pick up more than you're selling, you have outlets to like offload that.
yes, I do. I have a few guys that they'll pay me a certain percentage after the show, and so say I buy um, 80, 85%. They'll pay me 90,
Mhm.
95. And I've started to, what's the word? Lower my margin to increase volume. So my goal is to eventually get to $1 million a month in sales. So I figure if I, move my margin to 5 to 10%, I could probably 10x what I'm doing,
Mhm.
what I was doing 3 months ago. So that's kind of my plan. It's kind of, I could sell there, do 30, 40, but it's kind of just for marketing reasons. Like I'll have a whole case full of vintage Charizards, fill out the case,
Mhm.
say graded Charizards, and another one just be packs. But that's more so for people to bring me stuff. They see I have packs, they're going to bring me packs. They see if I have high end, they're going to bring me high end. The whole next day, I could just, wholesale that to somebody and make my small flip
Mhm.
and, rebuy, but kind of hurts the purpose and people won't associate me with high end at a show or vintage packs, vintage
Mhm.
boxes. So the more type of stuff I keep there, the more they'll bring it. But I definitely go there more for the buys, 100%.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's some. Sorry.
no, I've definitely just built that up on my Instagram over time that
Mhm.
people just bring me stuff, and like you were saying with the Facebook groups, I used to just sell there only. So there's definitely lots of
Mhm.
outlets outside of the show for you to be selling now with Instagram and how it is online now.
Mhm. No, and I think that's yeah, that's cool. And something that a friend of mine, so I have a friend, his name's Jackson Monette. He's scaled, like his story is wild. Like he worked at Facebook for like a couple of years, and then he completely quit his job at Facebook to start doing Pokemon. Um, and he has been able within the past, he's been doing it for about a year now, or a year and a half now, and he's been able to scale like into like like a six-figure collection or seven. I don't know where he's at right now. He does crazy numbers. He was talking in the group chat today about how he's doing like a gold star buyout. So he's making money. Um, but something that he told me in the beginning while I was vending, or starting to vend, was like not have trade bait, but like people, you're kind of playing the psychological game too, where like you said, like you have a case full of PSA or PSA Charizards or graded Charizards, or you have a case full of slabs. People seeing that are like, okay, this guy's like actually serious, or this guy like knows what he's doing, or whatever, and they're going to be more attracted to your table because you have certain things that either they're looking for, or they know that you're like serious in the game, so that they're like, okay, maybe he'll be more inclined to buy stuff than the next guy. Um, and I know on TCG Player, I also kind of play into that, where you like, I'm a level 4 pro seller, so I'm like the highest standard seller that you can be on TCG Player. And um, something I do as well on there is like pricing it like a little bit less or like a little bit more. Or what I used to do beforehand was I'd up my shipping costs, but lower the price of the card. So like kind of playing that psychological game with your buyers, and making them more inclined, or having trade bait. Like for example, back to what I was saying, stuff like this. This is a card that I have in my inventory right now. Um, that I'm not selling because it's a card that my brother bought when he was like 6. And he kept it in a sleeve for months, and then we sent it to PSA and we got a 10. So something that I do is we have this in there, and it's kind of like, it's not trade bait, but it's like people see it and they're like, oh wow, like this guy has some crazy stuff, and then like they'll buy stuff, or they'll be like more inclined to buy things. So I'm curious, like, does that kind of sound right with what I'm saying? Like, kind of playing into like a psychological game as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's more so branding yourself as well. You go to the bigger guys like Hidden Network, Loose Packs, or, they kind of center themselves around like high end sealed. So obviously everyone's going to bring them their sealed first thing they walk in, or kind of to check prices are going to be with those guys. So if you kind of sustain your brand around a certain type of buy sell trade, that people will bring that to you. Like I mostly do higher end sealed or slabs, so that's typically what people bring to me. There are certain guys that will only do raw cards, and they'll have the binders come to them typically. But with trade bait, yeah, like I like to keep certain cards in, because when you trade them, you get a lot of variety as well, and it just keeps. It wouldn't look good if you just had nothing in your case. So you just got to keep a lot of variety and cool items, and people will, they'll be walking by, say, "Oh, you buy that," and that's what they typically will bring. Like at the last show, I had tons of packs, or specifically Jersey Collecticon. I normally don't bring as many sealed packs, but I filled out a whole case of them, and I bought at least 40 vintage packs just from having them out there. That's never happened before. Normally, never even more than like 10 packs. But just by like putting them out there, that means, hey, you buy that, you're interested to that, even though everybody has buy, sell, trade signs. Nobody really thinks about it until they see what you have in your case, and kind of, that's your brand. I'll sell that to you, so forth.
Yeah, no, I think that's cool, and that's awesome. And it's not like law of attraction type stuff, but it's like they see that you have it, so they're going to be more inclined to bringing it to you.
Yep, 100%.
And that's cool. 40 vintage packs is wild. I would not. Yeah, that's actually crazy. But yeah, like that. Yeah, I'm still in the stage where like I'm doing mostly modern right now. But that's really that's awesome. And then I had a couple. You're saying that you do a lot of high end sealed, and then slab vintage. What kind of like why is that, I guess, or like how do you like curate your inventory, I guess, for like other like the shows that you do, and if you do like local shows, like what's different from a local show and a Collecticon in the way of like what inventory are you bringing?
Okay, yeah. So, well, I don't do local shows anymore for vending, but I will go to all the local shows for buying and make pretty fair offers to vendors, see what they have. Maybe I'll do some trades, but there's so many Collecticons now. It's kind of just re-upping inventory for Collecticon, or just selling online. That the local shows are more just fun to go on a Saturday, talk to the guys there that are set up, make good connections. Hopefully make some buys. That's the main reason I go. But the biggest comparison with Collecticon would just be that.
Cool. So buying more local shows and then selling, or doing more Collecticon stuff, which is that's cool. And is there a reason why you do like you have the inventory that you have, or like, so for example, does sealed sell better at Collecticon, or does slab sell better at Collecticon, like, or singles? Like what have you figured out over the years that like, okay, this sells better at a Collecticon, this sells better online, this sells better to a streamer, this sells like that type of stuff?
Yeah, 100%. So over the years, or the beginning of my Collecticons, I would like strategize, be like, this did it really bad, or this did really good, because I would bring more of everything, single, slab, sealed. So at current Collecticons, the best thing that's moving right now is like the high-end sealed or the high-end booster boxes. The vintage packs they kind of trickle out throughout times, and if you're only a single seller, those dollar binder pages, or just your high-end raw, they'll trickle out pretty fastly at the shows. But for me, I kind of like the bigger items, because you can only have so much real estate without, doubling your expenses at the Collecticon. So say I only have, 5 display cases. I only want to bring like my best stuff to fill that out. If I only brought, the cheaper stuff, it wouldn't be as worth my time to have all this overhead over my, over myself. And, one good trade in my favor could with a big card could carry all those expenses and kind of just go from there. So if I
so
only have high-end booster boxes or higher grade PSA 10 slabs, those, my total cost of inventory in the cases are so much higher than if I just brought, cheaper stuff, because I'd have to sell 100 cheaper items for, one big item kind of makes up for it. So that's my ideology on it.
Cool. So like maximizing your ROI essentially, and like making sure that, if you sell, I don't know how many tables you do on average for a Collecticon, but if tables are like if you're buying them retail, they're like 300, 350 a table, right? Or something.
They range from 290 to maybe 350 if you're buying it in an island or by yourself, somewhere in that range.
Okay. But let's say you're paying 350 a table and you're buying 5 tables, whatever it is. Let me just, I don't know, on 350 times 5. So let's just say, and then plus expenses, because obviously you have to rent out a hotel and Airbnb. Let's just say your expenses for a show is like 2,500. You're saying that you're going to obviously make that money back faster if you're selling higher end stuff than if you're selling bulk singles or whatever.
Correct.
So that that makes sense. That and that's cool that you're like able to like notice those like trends and stuff like that. How has streaming affected your business?
Streaming?
So obviously I know you don't stream like Whatnot and stuff like that, but like how has that atmosphere and like the popularity, something you hinted at personal brands being something big in 2025, or something that's growing. Another thing is like live shopping, so like Whatnot, TikTok live or whatever, all that type of stuff. Have you noticed, because those industries are gaining a lot more popularity, that like have people that stream on Whatnot or TikTok or whatever, like are they either buying from you? Have they reached out to you? Are they like, how has that kind of dynamic changed, and I guess within the past year?
I'd say it's completely transformed the hobby, because Whatnot, TikTok Shop is kind of giving all these sellers a platform to be able to sell all these people all at once. On one platform, it's just one seller with 100 eyes at them, at one time, versus at a show, it's just, me and one other person, or me talking to 2 other people. So a lot of my clients are, Whatnot streamers, and I'll sell to them at a, percentage where they can still make money, and I'm, still making my end of the deal. And, say, I have Chris at Collectible Tags. He'll pay me very strong on packs, just stuff like that. A lot of streamers that come my way. When I do singles, I'll trade out of them for slabs for, the streamers, because it makes sense for either business model. And slabs, I'll sell to people at 90%, but I'll sell them 100 slabs at a time because they need it for their, repacks or something like that. So having the digital repack machines, streamers are definitely like 80% of my clients now, because they need it for their side of the business that I don't do. So it works out perfectly.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's what I was thinking. And that's like a great insight. My friend Jackson also has started doing streaming, and I like kind of stream with them a little bit. So I do a little bit of TikTok streaming. But that's something that I was noticing, was that like you're just going through inventory so fast, especially on there. So like and it makes sense. Like, so let's say you have $10,000 worth of singles, right? That streamer, that's gonna take you a couple of shows probably to go through, I would assume. Where a streamer could go through that, if they're streaming consistently every day, that could probably go out in like a week or two. So for you, it's like, hey, I have this $10,000 in singles that you guys are gonna move, because you guys have the audience, you guys have the outreach, you guys have the buyers that are gonna buy all that stuff. Let's do a deal where I'm trading in a couple high-end, like super high-end slabs for that raw that you guys have, or I have my raw, I'm trading for slabs, or inventory or sealed or whatever it might be, or cash, so that it helps both of you guys out, which I like is really cool. And I think that dynamic is like, it's obviously like It depends because obviously there's a lot of people, like normal people, that get cooked from like repackers and stuff like that. But I think in the general sense of like the business and the hobby, that it's positive, and like for sellers especially, I think it's like really really good. Um, but that's just my insight. I don't know. I'm just a seven. I don't even know what I'm doing at this point. So
No, there's
I'm
just
just
so
going
many
along.
different business models inside Pokemon. It's kind of just a mutual benefit for everybody that, we all do different things and can bring each other different leads. I'll throw someone a lob, they'll throw me one for what I
Mhm.
need or they need. So it all pretty much works out with one another, especially when we all do good business. It pays off.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. Um, this is so something I like to ask on every. Am I good on time, by the way?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. I don't want to eat into what you're doing. Um, but something I like to ask on every podcast is so my first show that I went to was a local card show, and it's like when I was just starting out doing Pokemon and stuff like that, or reselling Pokemon. I didn't really know a lot about stuff anyway about Pokemon, but like reselling. And for me, at this card show, there was an Evolutions Charizard, just like a raw Evolutions Charizard. And like I bought that Charizard, and I was like, "Wow, I have a chart like like whatever. It's not a first gen or whatever." But for me, it was like a very monumental point because I was like, "All right, this like I'm buying this card to signify that like from now on until I hit my goal, um, is like I'm in this for real, and like I want to make this my business. I want to make this a profession. I want to like actually like succeed in this and like kill it and like do a lot of like print with it." Um, and ever since I started doing this podcast, was like I call what was your first Charizard. So essentially, it could be what was your first Charizard if you want to take it literally, or like what was that first card or that first deal or that first buy or that first trade that like solidified you're like, oh, like I'm in this for real and I want to do this. Obviously you said with your soccer thing you paying for soccer, so I guess if that's that for you, that's great. But kind of like what was that moment, I guess, that you're like, wow, I'm in this for real.
Okay, well, I would say it took a couple of years to get there. Actually, the beginning of the year in January, so I never did a 100K month, but I was built that first 100K. Well, in capital especially, takes so long to get to. So it took me like 3 years to hit my first 100K month in revenue for Pokemon. I did that in January, so that's probably the first month I was like, wow, that's crazy. I can't believe I did this. But that'd be like, I was on my phone all day, every single day, doing like 10 deals a day at least. And that was definitely my first, crazy moment because I definitely hit it about like a day or two before the month ended. But now it's just snowballed. Those small win, just translates over time. Now I do some like 100K deals sometimes, and it's pretty crazy to think. And it's just over time, your expectations just go higher and higher. So that Charizard moment it kind of just signifies, that breakthrough moment of a really high goal that I never thought I'd hit. And then now that goal is like, I want to keep pushing for higher goals to $1 million a month. And then once you hit that million, it's like, okay, you're not going to want to be stagnant there. And then, what type of other business can I translate with my card business and just snowballing from there?
No, that's cool. And that reminds me of something that I saw, was it, I think yesterday, but it was like your first, it's like your first 1,000 comes from hard work. Your first 10,000, this is like relating online. So you're like, your first 1,000 comes from hard work. Your first, or no, your first 10,000 comes from hard work. Your first 100,000 comes from like you implementing systems and you like, you know, implementing systems and like networking to get to there. And then your first million or your first 100, your first million, I think, is like you employing like a team or you like scaling that and figuring out ways to include other people into your systems. So like I think that sounds like kind of what you're saying, and how like it took you such a long time to get there, but now that you got there, like you hit the barrier, and now like the sky's the limit, which is I think is really
Say
good.
that a lot of people say it's the first $100,000 is the hardest thing you can do, and that's kind of I probably I told you I started selling 50-cent cards on eBay up to $20 cards and $100 cards, and you go a little crazy, and then you might hit some good cards like grading that can kind of boost you a bit, just stuff like that. So it definitely doesn't happen overnight to get to that $100,000, which really $100,000 just leverages your money a lot easier for other deals that I've noticed. But the first 100K is by far the hardest, and just lots of grit to get there.
Yeah, I think that's congrats on that. And how do you like, I don't, this is kind of a weird question, but like, how do you like celebrate, I guess that, like, do you celebrate those wins, or are you just like so locked in that you just like don't worry about it and you just keep on pushing?
I haven't really celebrated because I've been going so hard this year. Maybe honestly, I haven't celebrated. I was going to say maybe I'll go to dinner with my girlfriend, but like, that's not even like, I'll take her out regardless. But for myself, honestly, I just want to set a bigger goal. That's kind of like the dopamine rush I'll get is, once I hit, I'm like, that's cool. But, there's bigger goals out there. Obviously you need, time to reflect, thank, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for giving me the opportunity and kind of reflect on where you've come from. But from there, you got to keep going. But honestly, that's probably one of my things I struggle with, is taking a second to like relax and kind of enjoy the moment. But I'm hoping at the end of the year, with some of my profits, I can take my girlfriend on a trip to Costa Rica for her birthday. So I guess it's kind of, I'll celebrate as, a gift like that. But I gotta enjoy the moment sometimes and take my wins with some more fun.
No, that's good. That's awesome. And like, I asked that question because for me, I'm not like, I don't have a PC, because like that was my main reason, because I was like, I don't want any of this to like hinder what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to build. So like, I feel I get that, like that same wavelength. I have bought one pair of shoes that I really wanted, but at the same time I bought them used, and like I got them for like half of what they're usually online. But that's great, and I think that's awesome. And honestly, I think that like in the long term, like obviously it's good to celebrate and all that stuff, but in the long term of stuff, like stuff just happens so fast. Like, it's like 1 second, like kind of how you're saying that dopamine rush. I feel that at shows all the time, where it's like bam, 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 deal's done. And then I'm like, oh, what? And then I look on the watch and it's like, oh, there's 1 hour left of the show. Like, how did that happen? And it's like whenever, usually like coming home, eating the post-show meal, which I know all vendors know the post-show meal. Post-show meal hits so hard. But it's like, it's just a rush, bro. It's just like, it's such a big rush. And it's awesome to be able to complete that. So,
yep.
Yeah, I get that. What has been, obviously you've done a bunch of huge deals. What has been your biggest deal you've ever done?
I actually just posted this. So my buddies over at Collector Crypt and I did a huge deal. I was talking to this guy it's mostly CGC, which, gets a lot of stigma, but it was high-end crystals, gold stars. I was talking to this guy for about 3 or 4 months. At this point, trying to close the deal. Eventually it just worked out where, the market moved a certain way and we came to a fair number for both parties. And I purchased the collection for, let me see.
This is the one where you flew out, right?
Yes. I'll explain the whole story in a second. I want to see what I bought it for. I put it in the video, but I forget. I believe I purchased it for even $190,000. So I flew to Arizona, picked up the collection, and my buddies, they wanted me to drop it off at the vault for them. And the margin wasn't crazy, but when you're going to that high scale of cards, it adds up. And I flipped it for $224,000. So that was by far my biggest deal I've ever done. But
so
the margin wasn't like insane, but at that scale of cards, that obviously the profit adds up. I made $34,000, maybe 32 after all the expenses that went into it. That was probably my biggest deal so far. I made a whole video traveling, so I flew to Phoenix, Arizona to pick it up. Did the deal with the guy. I met him at a Chase. It was like 10 minutes before the Chase closed because my flight kept getting delayed, and I switched to a Southwest one last second. Hopped on that one just to get there on time because the guy wouldn't have done the deal unless he, we initiated the transfer at the bank. We did the deal there. I hopped on a flight later that night, flew to Philadelphia. Then I had to take a bus from the Philadelphia airport to the Delaware airport, where I went to the PSA vault, dropped it off, we secured the wire, went back from Delaware to Philadelphia, flew back home to Tampa, and that was a pretty crazy deal. But a lot goes on behind the scenes that I make it seem.
Yeah. No, that's crazy, man. And that's like you said, like the margins aren't crazy, but at that level, it's like why people, the average thing that you're buying a poncho at is like 90% or whatever, and that's because that 90% is like $500. So like that's an incredible story, and I think that's like for me that's just like unfathomable. Did you do? Because I know you set up the video. Was that at the chase, or was just the payment at the chase?
The payment was at the chase, and the video of us like shaking hands and laying out all the cards. We went to a Starbucks and counted it up after just to double check everything, and just
That's crazy. Yeah. So I've done.
It was 2 days of straight traveling, so I didn't sleep. Actually, I got sick for like 2 weeks from that trip because I didn't sleep. I didn't really eat, and I was just after a Collecticon. I went straight to do that deal, so I was honestly pretty sick, and it was pretty crazy, but definitely was.
Yeah. So. Yeah, no, that's crazy. And like I was saying with the Starbucks, like I've done a couple Starbucks deals. Starbucks is just a good place to do deals. I don't know why. But like how obviously you had all those slabs set on the table. Like for you, I think one of the coolest things about being a Pokemon, like having a Pokemon business and making money with Pokemon, is that when other people are looking at it, they're like, "What? Like this is great!" Like like they can't really comprehend it. So like, obviously, I assume you did that. And you said you did that in Starbucks. So like, how have other people like when you tell them you do this, like how's like that perception, I guess? And I guess this kind of goes back to what you said with your parents too. Like obviously they kick you out and all that type of stuff. How was like when you told them like, "Yo, mom and dad, I want to make money. I'm making money doing Pokemon." Like how has that? How do people respond to that usually?
People typically undermine me. They still undermine me. One, because of my age. Two, they just think cards are kind of silly. So I used to kind of like force my point upon people. Not force my point, but really try to argue why I believe in what I'm doing. It's fun. It's I give good deals. Everybody wins. But I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I see longevity in it. But then to a certain point where I really started to see myself succeed, and people would still like undermine it, I've stopped caring, honestly. I remember people in high school, because I would do cards in high school. They're like, "You're not going to make any good money off of this. Like, you should take school more seriously." I was a pretty good student, but I don't think anyone ever took it seriously, even up until like last year. Mm-hmm. I would on any family event, they would just tell me to go back to school.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Not as much now, but yeah, even like Christmas, it was really awkward because everybody would just tell me to go back to school, and I would just sit there and kind of ignore it.
Yeah, no, I feel that, bro. I have those same conversations with all my family, except my brother. And
school is not a bad thing. I'm not telling anyone never do school, but if you enjoy entrepreneurship, you have to take risks that other people aren't willing to do, and you can reap the rewards, or obviously have that safety at a normal job, which sometimes it's nice, saying, "Hey, this is going to be what I'm going to get. And, if I do my counting right, I'll never have to worry a day in my life." But with entrepreneurship and Pokemon, like I literally could be, homeless if, this didn't work out. So you really got some grit and, not give up if you're wanting to pursue another path.
Yeah, no. And my perception on it for me is that like, obviously if you want to be a doctor or if you want to be a lawyer or you want to be something like that, like obviously you have to go to school for that. Like you have to have a certain level of training for that. But if you want to be like an entrepreneur, do your own business, like the risk is obviously like astronomically greater. But if you have the hard work, like you said, there was no plan B, you just stick with it. That is, you don't necessarily need to go to school as long as you learn the processes, learn the strategies, learn, okay, this is how operations work, all that type of stuff. And I'm kind of, when I started doing this originally, obviously I'm in high school still, so I started doing junior. All junior people are like, "Man, Rocco, your business is like," they like hating on it. and stuff like that. But then like you show them, I don't want to say you show them the numbers, but like once I hit like 1,000 followers on Instagram, which is obviously like nothing, but once I hit that 1,000 followers on Instagram and I started doing the daily reels and stuff, everyone just started like being quiet about it. Like I don't know why. And maybe it was just because I didn't pay attention to it and like you said, kind of ignore it, and I just like kept my head down, kept on working on it and all that type of stuff. But I get what you're saying, and like I think that obviously it's that whole thing. Like they hate it until you make it. You know, like you're not gonna. They're not. Most people don't understand what you're doing unless they've either one been in your situation, or two, like after the fact that you've already been making it. So I think,
yeah, I can't even say I'm at the point where I've made it, because there's just lots of levels above what I want to get to. But it's at a certain point where if I wanted to, or if I did what everybody else wanted, I want to be happy in my life. So kind of, you just can't care.
Yeah, exactly.
And even at this point in the hobby, because I don't know, people they think all types of things, like I'm gifted money, or I get trust fund kid, I get scalper, even though I'm buying cards from 1999. I don't know how it's, I get all these comments every single day that just don't make sense. So I listen to all of them and let it get to my head. I want to, be focused and driven and being where I want to be at in my life.
Yeah. No, the scalper comment's funny. It's like you said you're doing bodybuilding. It's like when you're a natural bodybuilder and you've been working for like 5 years, and then everyone claims that you're doing roids. It's like the same thing. It's like, oh, now that guy's on trend. It's like, nah, I've been in the gym for 5 years and you've been on the couch. That's why I'm like this. But I feel like you just can't. Obviously, like you see the hate comments, and like this is something that I realized as I started doing YouTube and Instagram and all that stuff. Like when beforehand, like when I'm on the other side, let's just say I'm a consumer, right? Like I'm just watching whatever, and they're like, "Oh, don't let the hate." Like you're like, "Oh, I would never let the hate get to me if I was in that position." And then now I'm on the opposite side, where I am doing the videos, where I am doing the reels, all that type of stuff, and it's like, wow, actually, like those hate comments do hurt sometimes. Yes. Yeah, and it's just
they wanted to jump me because I bought Pokemon cards. I was, kind of gets to, it's like, it's pretty crazy.
No, that's wild. Like they wanted to jump you?
It's a troll comment. Yeah, I'll get like, threatening comments sometimes. People wanting to hurt me, or I'm gonna rob you. You're gonna get robbed all the time. So
no, that's crazy. And that's actually something that happened recently. So my friend, I don't want to say I took on an apprentice, but I have a friend, his name's Max. And he's wanting to get into Pokemon. We met at a show and now we're like best friends. And he's been wanting to get into Pokemon. And he did the last national with me that I went to. He was there all 3 days. And he actually got robbed at gunpoint at the end of the show. But he handled it like a boss, bro. So like the little Zion cases, like there's obviously the big Zion suitcases, but then there's like the little ones that are 2 rows. Yeah. He took the handheld case and he threw it, like knocked the guy's gun out of his hand and like booked it. And that was so crazy. But ever since then, you're saying people robbing and all that stuff. Like all the vendors at the show come like strapped. I don't know how that, I don't know how Collecticon is or like other bigger shows, but all of them come. Everyone, like ever since that moment, people don't play here. Like really, no one plays here. And it's like, it's interesting. Like at our shows specifically, we have to hire security now to make sure that everyone's safe. And I think that's all that stuff is like a, what is it? A repercussion, I guess, of like how popular Pokemon's been getting, especially with like the last full run or like last cycle. How it like just got super popular with all like the Costco videos and all that stuff, where people are like, oh wow, this actually has a lot of money to make. And I think that's just a repercussion of that. But it's getting crazy sometimes. It can get really wild.
Yep.
So anyway, I know we're pushing it, and I was gonna ask you a couple more things. What's your favorite Pokemon? Number 1.
I like Sableye. He's a little dude who likes his gym. He likes his money. I think it's pretty funny. I like Tyranitar too. Those are my top 2, I'd say.
Oh, do you have that card?
I have that card in Japanese.
Oh, that's sick. That's cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I was gonna
And then, huh,
I was gonna say that because I noticed it in the back. I also like Houndoom. My puppy's a Rottweiler, so kind
oh,
of
nice,
similar. So yeah, I'd say those are my top three Pokemon.
cool. What how has so you don't bring your dog, obviously you don't bring your dog to conventions, right?
No.
Yeah, so you have someone to take care of him. That's I think that's something that I noticed a lot, like TGR trade. I don't know if you know who TGR trade is.
Yes.
Or like okay, cool. Or like Brez Scales or all those people.
Yes.
Um like those are people that I'll watch when I'm like packing orders and stuff. But like all of them just have a dog and it's just funny. Um and I thought when I saw seeing your like I love my dog like literally in every reel. I'm like, and I walk my dog, and I walk my dog.
I
And
see
I
it.
don't know, it just brings like a sense of like dogs are just chill, bro. So something for me is another like short term goal or big goal that I have is that once I turn 18, because I'll graduate and I'll still be 17, but once I turn 18, I want to move out and get my own place or split something with some friends um, and do Pokemon. But that is off topic of what I was going to say. I was going to ask what are kind of like your market predictions, I guess, for the coming couple of months? Because obviously Pokemon's been going through a really turbulent time right now. Um, what are kind of like your market predictions, and then what's kind of obviously you've been able to hit your 1 million challenge, and you said you're trying to scale to $1 million a month. What is your short term goals, and then like eventually like where do you want to be? Because I know you said you kind of want to generate this cash flow into other businesses.
Okay, well, for the Pokemon market in general, I think slabs are like stocks, sealed are like bonds or ETFs, where they're pretty safe. So I'd say obviously none of this is financial advice, but any set that you think is undervalued, any Scarlet Violet, any set that's like in the $200 range that first releases, um, it's going to go up, or else it's going to be like the cheapest set of all the time. Any set's going to go up over time. Statistically, it has. Like I positioned myself into Evolving Skies, and I posted on my story like every week, every time I bought a box, buy Evo Skies. My average buy position was $800 to like $900. I have over like 30 boxes. So they've just appreciated over time. They're still really undervalued. They just hit their first $2,500 sale recently. So I'd say any sealed statistically goes up over time. Booster boxes in particular are just the easiest, and sometimes Japanese sealed really takes a while to go up at all. And
Mm-hmm.
slabs is kind of a risk, honestly. If you think like the Chinese cards, they've recently gone up. If you think it's undervalued, if you think a certain type of market, I want to say just one card, but you kind of have to look at the market in general for that card, or else it's kind of just educating guessing what's going to go up. But like the Chinese market, if you bought all those boxes, you'd be up a lot right now, or predicted that those cards were kind of untapped into that those slabs can go into. But I'm a big believer in sealed and positioning yourself into sealed items that haven't really hit that appreciation curve yet. Because once they hit those curves, it's kind of hard to buy those boxes for investments. Like who would have thought any of these XY black and white sets would go so crazy, but even then they still have room to grow.
Yeah, cool. I think that's awesome. Um, and that's something that I think is true. Kind of goes back to the point like collect what you like, because eventually over time it's like any. I see Pokemon as a what is it? Is it like I think it's like a fourth asset market class or something like that along those lines, where it's a separate asset bracket or asset class like gold or crypto or stocks, um, or real estate, whatever. Um, that over time it's just going to grow. Pokemon's like the biggest IP in the world. It's probably not going to fail. Obviously, anything could go under, but it's most likely within the next 100 years. It's not going. If anything, it's just going to go up. And one of my friends who I had on the podcast before this, Henry, who is he's a 17-year-old, absolutely killing it where he is locally. Is he's collecting a lot of battle styles because he thinks that set is really undervalued and he's going to go with it. But kind of along those lines, over time it's just going to grow. And I think that's great insight. And yeah, I saw all those Evo boxes. That's stuff like that's crazy. Like I almost bought my first ETB of Evos, guys. But I don't do a lot of sealed because just sealed. I think it has like good margins, but at the same time, it's like kind of for me. It's just more bulk to move, and I don't have like a whole bunch of stuff to move. I'd rather just have everything in the case. But that's that's really cool. And then, what is your favorite card in your collection right now?
Probably that Sableye Tyranitar that you have in the back, but I have it in Japanese. I think that's pretty sick. I have a few Tyranitar cards and Sableye cards, a few Houndooms, and I have some of my, childhood cards. I grew up on like, Platinum, stuff like that. So I have a bunch of level X cards, the Silver Border EX cards. I have a few of those. Eventually I want to get all the level X's and raw cards. I think that'd be pretty cool, but those are my favorite slabs at the moment. Eventually I'd want a Shining T-Tar PSA 10. I think that's the coolest card. It's like the Godzilla card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm like PSA 10 nothing, so I gotta wait a bit.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I like PSA 10s or PSA 1s. Those are my two spectrums that I have. I had one PSA 9, but I just like flipped that super easy. And that was the reason why I picked it up. But no, the T-Tar, the shiny T-Tar has mad aura. Big aura card right there. Thick. But cool. And then my last question, you've hinted at a whole podcast, but like what's the next move for RJS?
Okay, so I have a few different things. First of all, I want to grow my personal brand, keep making videos and eventually, make another series, because I feel like the biggest way to follow a creator is if you have like a series that you're going after. Mm-hmm. Like I did the 0 to 1 million. I got a lot of followers from that. And you're obviously doing a similar thing. And then eventually I'll make a video. I want to translate into $1 million per month Pokemon business and try to do it in a cool way. Because the thing with Pokemon is it's not all about the money. It's a hobby at the end of the day that people want to be involved around. So they can't only focus around the revenue side. So I got to really figure that out. And then I want to create a certain type of app. I don't want to say too many, specifics that translates into the community. And then, obviously with other funds, I want to venture off into different real estate businesses. And I want to be, founders of companies, stuff like that in the entrepreneurship realm. But for RJS specifically, definitely just grow my brand, meet new people, travel the world selling Pokemon cards. I think it's pretty fun and a great opportunity that we have in the recent years.
Cool. I actually have some ideas with other stuff that I'll obviously talk to you. I would love to talk to you after the podcast, not like after, but text you afterwards. But yeah, that's awesome. And I think that that's something that obviously one of my also main missions as like a brand and a person is obviously, it goes back to like the whole internet money stuff where there's like, people show that, drop shipping and e-com and agency and brand scaling, all that type of stuff.
I've tried it all, by the way.
Huh?
I've tried all those. I've done like 4 or 5 failed businesses while doing Pokemon at the same time.
Yeah, I have a failed agency. I also have a failed. What else did I do? I just got I got rug pulled on a meme. Well, I didn't get rug pulled on a meme coin. I held it for too long. I doubled my investment within like an hour, and then I held. And I like got cooked. But I understand all that stuff, which is all I separate that. So like I use my Publix money and like my real job money to do that type of stuff, and then Pokemon I have sold for Pokemon so that the business can scale by itself. And I don't take any money out of it unless it's like I need it for something like really quick. But pretty much what I want to do is I want to show, and I think we're in an era right now or a time in history where it's like obviously it's never been easier to make money online, or make money in general. And I want to be like, hey, Pokemon is an avenue for that, and that will like essentially like lead into like some educational type stuff is kind of what I'm thinking in the future.
Yep.
But that's kind of what my mission is on that, to kind of wrap that up. And then if you have, I guess we'll close out. If you have anything else that you'd like to say or add or anything that you want to talk about.
No, just stay tuned, especially with Rocco on his goal to be a Pokemon millionaire. Just a lot of big things ahead for, both parties here, and definitely growing in the industry.
Cool. And then where can people find you?
RJS Collectibles on Instagram and on TikTok.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, I think we'll cap it off there. Thank you everyone for watching. Make sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe. It sounds so cringy to say at the camera, but make sure to do those things because that stuff helps all the time. Make sure to follow RJS Collectibles wherever he is on TikTok and Instagram. And if you see him at Collecticon, we will both be at Atlanta Collecticon. So make sure to follow us there. What's the next show you're doing?
I will do Charlotte Collecticon. It's next weekend.
All right. If you're going to Charlotte Collecticon, make sure to look at RJS Collectibles. Find him. He has cool stuff. At least that's what he's been telling me. And I think that is it. So thank you guys so much for watching the 33rd episode of the PokéSells Official Podcast. And I'll see you guys next time.
Yes, sir. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Of course.